not disappoint.
So I'm not kidding all day, like, is she gonna bring cookies? Maybe she'll bring pie. What's she gonna bring? There's an actual discussion all day in the bookstore. If you have a phone or any sort of noise-making device in your pocket, now's a good time to put it on silent. So Blackberry Pie Murder is the 17th novel featuring Hannah Swenson. And when you get to the point in a series, I feel like there's nothing new I can tell you that you don't already know about Joanne, which makes writing an intro rather difficult. After all, you know why you're here. For a delectable treat of a book, and probably an actual big fit as well. Which means any lengthy introduction that I do is really just cruelly prolonging that time you have to wait, which would be criminal. How you guys doing? I'm really just hoping to sneak all the cookies while you guys are waiting. So without further ado, because honestly, I'm sure most of you have seen her before, please welcome Joanne Fluke.
Hello, how are you? Good tonight? Good. I've got my bag of goodies here. No cookies in this one. And, oh gosh, there's so many things. I have too many things. Whoa. Is that okay? Can you all hear me? Yeah. Okay, good. Good. I'll try to kind of, well, wait a minute. That's better. Okay. Blackberry Pie Murder has some surprises in it. And you have lovely cookies, which are a surprise tonight too. Gail made them. And they're actually blue blackberries this time. It's a new kind. She used blueberries instead of blackberries. And they work. They're really good. Which just goes to show you that it's one of Hannah's recipes. You can use any berry you want in it. And it still works beautifully. Okay, the surprises in, well, you know, I'm not going to tell you the surprises in Blackberry Pie Murder because I brought something with me. Hold on. Aha. Now, this is, we call it a CAT. It's Professor Brugnucker made this up. It is a cyber animal translator. And with this, I can contact Moisha. So I'm going to do that right now and see, well, let's see, what time is, yeah, probably. Okay, I don't think he's sleeping yet. This messes up my hair, of course, and I look awful, but I don't care. Okay, Moisha, hello? Moisha, are you there? Moisha. Oh, good, good. Okay. All right, Moisha, is Hannah home yet? No? No? Hannah's not home? Wait, what? Where is she? Oh dear. Really? Ooh. Oh, yeah, I'll tell him. Just a second. He says Hannah's not home. She was supposed to be home an hour ago. She's out to dinner with Dolores and everybody. And Andrea, you know, everyone is out at the Lake Eden Inn, and she's not home yet, and he's worried. Okay, Moisha, hello, hello, hello. Okay, yes, of course. Oh, Norman just pulled up in the drive. Really? Norman's in the visitors parking lot? Well, maybe Hannah's with him. Hold on, hold on. Okay, Norman's there. Yeah, he's at the door. He has the key. He's coming in. Okay, all right. Good, I'm glad. What was that? What was that? Oh, no. Yes, just a second, I'll tell them. Hannah's in jail. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh, for what, Moy? What? Vehicular homicide? Oh my. Yeah, you go ahead and go home with, you go home with Norman, and Cuddles will be there. It'll be okay. Bye. Wow, Hannah's in jail. Okay, this should be very interesting. And you'll read all about it in Blackberry Pie Murder. There are also some very good recipes in Blackberry Pie Murder. There's a couple of my very favorites. The blue blackberry cookies, of course, that Gail made. And also there is one for a chocolate cookie that is to die for. And no, nobody gets killed with the chocolate cookie. But, oh my goodness, are they good. And let's see what else is in there. Let me think. Oh, there's a buttermilk pie that's very, very good. It was my grandmother's buttermilk pie. Sometimes she made it with lemon, and sometimes she made it with lime. And I asked her once, how do you know which one that you should use? And she said, well, whatever catches my eye at the store. And we lived in a very small town, and they didn't always have limes. So when they didn't, she used the lemons. Let's see, what else is in there? I can't even think. Oh, does anybody have a copy of the book with them? Look in the back. There's a glossary of recipes in there. There's some wonderful ones. Let me think. There's another, well, of course, the blackberry pie is divine. I would not have put it in if it were divine. See anything interesting? Yeah, she's reading them.
Crisps.
Whoa. No, there's really good ones in there. Oh, the toast cups. There's something that's really good. And now, mind you, I test all my recipes at least 3 times. Every single one. Sometimes more, The chocolate cookies, I tested, I think, about 12 times. I had to make sure, yes. The toast cups, those were delicious. And as a matter of fact, when I am through testing, and they have to turn out all 3 times, when I'm through testing a recipe, is my son here, John?
Yes, Mother.
Yeah, you probably met my son before.
Blackberry security.
Yeah, yeah. John, how many people here know my son, John, from previous years? Yeah? Okay, now, you don't know his girlfriend, Kathy, do you? Good. Okay. Kathy is, well, to put it kindly, not a baker. She is challenged with baking.
She can burn water.
Uh-huh. Pretty much. Okay, she makes one dish. That's spaghetti, right, honey?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay, that she can do, but that's it. So when I am through with testing a recipe, and it's worked 3 times at least for me, then I write it all out, and I give it to Kathy to test. I say, Kathy, will you please test this recipe for me? And she goes, oh, sure. She takes it home, and she brings back whatever she comes up with from the recipe. And if it's good, I put it in the book, because if Kathy can bake it, anybody can make it. So that's my little acid test. She's getting pretty good at it, so I may have to find somebody else. John? Oh, he left.
I'm here.
You didn't hear that, did you?
Oh, but may I have to test somebody else?
Yeah.
She's getting good at it?
Yeah, she's getting good at it.
Lord.
Oh, gosh. What else should I tell them about Blackberry, John?
Well, you already showed them the cyber animal kind
Oh, yes, I certainly did. Yes.
How about Dolores?
Oh, yeah, Dolores. Dolores has a new love, as you probably already know, Doc Knight. Doc Knight is very good for Dolores. He has humanized Dolores in ways that probably nobody else could. You know, Dolores used to be pretty hard on her daughters, very hard on her daughters, especially Hannah. I mean, Dolores was pleased with Andrea because Andrea got married, settled down, and had baby Tracy. And then, of course, Tracy started to grow up, and Andrea had another baby, Bethy. So Dolores is very happy with her granddaughters. But Hannah's not married yet. And Hannah is the oldest daughter. And Dolores really felt that it was time for Hannah to settle down, get married to a nice guy, and have children. And actually, my editor felt the same way. Because I got a call from my editor saying, Joanne, I really think it's time for Hannah to get married. And I said, does Hannah know that? And he said, no, really, no, don't be funny. You know, I really think that in this book, last book you said soon. And this book, I really feel that Hannah should get married. And I said, well, I don't think she should get married. And he said, yes, but we need a wedding. And I said, Dolores is getting married. Come on, we already got, Lisa got married, you know, in an earlier book. And now Dolores is going to be getting married. That's 2 weddings right there. You know, we don't need another wedding. He said, yes, but if Hannah got married, she could have children. And we need children in the book. So we've got children in the book. Andrea has 2 daughters. You know, we've got Tracy and we've got Bethy. I mean, we have kids. And he says, yes, but they're not Hannah's kids. I really feel that Hannah should get married. What could I say? I mean, really. So what I said was, okay, all right, fine. Hannah can get married in this book. He said, really? Because I fought him every step of the way on this one. And I said, oh, absolutely. Hannah can get married in Blackberry Pie Murder. He said, wonderful. And I said, but the groom's gotta die. And so he said, never mind. I figured that would get to him, right? And he wanted Hannah to marry Norman. And of course, he didn't want Norman to die. I don't either. I like Norman. Norman was supposed to die in the first book. Really. Honestly. I had planned to kill Norman off in the first book. But he was such a good character, I could not do it. He would not go away. I mean, sometimes characters just won't do what you want them to do in the outline. And Norman just stuck around. And he's been a wonderful character. I love to write about Norman. And Mike, when Mike first came to town, I thought Mike would get the axe too. I really did. But I couldn't do that either. So Mike and Norman are still there. And one of these days we got to move somebody new to town because those 2 are they're good friends, you know. They're not really that jealous anymore. So I think we're going to have to introduce a 3rd man. I'm not real sure who that's going to be, but it better be somebody. Anyway, in Blackberry, we are planning Dolores' wedding. And Dolores is being a real pain about it. Dolores is a little bit like my grandmother. My grandmother, oh, she was a wonderful lady, but she could not make up her mind. She used to have a group of ladies, and they would go over to each other's homes. You know, like every Wednesday, you'd go to somebody's house. You know, sometimes it would be Harriet's house, sometimes it would be Marge's house, sometimes it would be Gammy's house. And the ladies always served coffee and refreshments. And refreshments were always desserts. You see where I get it? Yes. Okay, Gammy could never decide what to serve. So she would start, she knew when it was her turn. Excuse me. And she would say, what shall we make? And well, she had a couple favorites. And we would suggest all the favorites. My mom and I would say, well, why don't you make that wonderful fruit cocktail thing? I don't know. And we said, well, how about the lemon angel fruit cake thing? She goes, oh, that's a good one. And so we think it's decided she's going to make that. And the next morning she'd come down in the morning for breakfast and coffee, and she'd sit at the table and she'd say, you know, I've been thinking about that lemon cake, and I don't think I want to make that lemon angel food cake. What else could I make? And so we suggest other things. And you know, until the night before, she never came up. She could not make up her mind. This is what Dolores is doing. It's the wedding dinner, the reception after the wedding. She cannot decide on a menu. And poor Hannah is saying, okay, Mom, you know, how about Doc really likes duck. Should we have duck? Oh, no, let's not have duck. You know, maybe chicken. And Hannah will say, okay, we could make a really fancy chicken dish. You know, sure we can. And then Dolores will say, yeah, let's go with chicken. And the next day she'll change her mind and decide it should be pork. And the next time it'll be salmon. And, you know, she cannot decide on the colors that she wants for the wedding. She can't decide on her wedding dress. She can't decide on dessert or the menu or the main dish or anything, or the flowers, because the flowers have to be coordinated with the bridesmaid dresses and her dress, and she can't decide a darn thing. So they're having trouble with Dolores. Now, Doc Knight is just, you know, fine, whatever you want. He's an easygoing guy. But Dolores is just, it's really, really bad in this book. Dolores just cannot make up her mind. But they do come up with a solution, and I won't tell you what it is, but it works beautifully. Any questions you want to ask me about Hannah or Lake Eden or anything? About it? Recipes? Anything? Nothing? Oh, come on, guys. I've been blathering away up here.
I thoroughly enjoyed every one of your books, and I have them all, and most of them are on the Kindle too. I've always kind of wondered, what do you have against unsalted butter?
Oh, you know, I really have a thing about that. I grew up in a dairy state, of course. Minnesota is a dairy state, so we have to use butter. The thing about unsalted butter is I absolutely despise it when a recipe calls for unsalted butter and then it calls for salt. You know, it's like, why don't you just use salted butter in the first place? It's easier to find than unsalted butter. You know, sometimes you can't find unsalted in the stores. And there aren't that many recipes that call for unsalted butter. Some very tricky baking things do. But, you know, if it calls for salt anyway, why not use salted butter, is the way I think about it. That's what my family did. So, but I don't really have anything against unsalted butter. It's just if it's served to me in the restaurant, I'll spread it on the bread and I'll pick up the salt shaker and put a little bit on it, because I really like salt. But if you can't have salt, yeah, use unsalted, certainly.
Okay.
You know, but try to use butter in a lot of
I always use butter.
Yeah.
I made your bread pudding.
Oh, did you?
And I got so many compliments out of it that I had to make up the recipes, and I made it in a big thing for potlucks. And
Oh, very good.
I every time I had a potluck, they said bread pudding. I made it with the apricots and the creme fraiche,
Oh, yes.
and also with the pineapple and macadamia nuts.
Ooh. Oh, that sounds so good.
With the coconut sauce.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's great. I love concoctions like that. They're well, number one, they're easy. I mean, it's not that difficult to make, right? And everybody is so impressed, and they think you're a genius for doing these things. As a matter of fact, John comes up with some cookies for me, my son. He loves the whippersnapper cookies. You know, the Cool Whip and the cake mix, and you add a couple of ingredients, and really, those cookies are very good. And, oh, there's another one in this book, too. We got another whippersnapper. Now, I don't know what he's going to do with the next book. And we've gone through all the different cake mixes. The only one I haven't tried anything with is strawberry cake mix. And I'm not fond of strawberry cake mix as part of it because it tastes kind of artificial to me.
It doesn't taste like strawberries.
I know. But I think the one in this book is the one with the spice cake mix, and those are good. Those are very good. So as a matter of fact, I know it is. Yeah, it's sort of a spice raisin cookie, and they're delicious. They have golden raisins in them, because I like golden raisins better than the brown ones. That's just me. You can put brown ones in if you like them better. But I love to make some of these recipes because you really can. If there's some ingredient you don't like, use something else. A lot of times, as long as you use the same amount of it, it doesn't matter a whit. I mean, if you don't like strawberries, use raspberries. If you don't like blackberries, use blueberries, or whatever. Yeah, I had to do that, didn't I? Yeah, Gail heard that. Gail's like, oh, gosh. Yeah. Oh, that was so funny. We were in the car talking, and she said, I made the cookies. I go, oh, great. This is wonderful. And she said, yes, I went to Trader Joe's, and I got these little ones. And, she says, blueberries. I got these little blueberries. We said, okay. And then she said, but then I decided that, maybe I should get the larger ones instead of just the little ones. And we said, okay, blueberries? John said, blueberries? She said, well, yeah. He said, blackberries. She went, oh, I didn't realize. So it just goes to show that these are very, very good cookies. You can use any berry. Any other questions about recipes or, yeah?
I like that you have chosen food in your titles. How did you come up with that idea?
That was actually my editor's idea. The first book, I wanted chocolate chip cookie murder because I have my favorite chocolate chip cookie in there, and believe me, that's my favorite recipe of all time. And so I decided I should do that for the first book, and I did. And then he liked it so much that he said, well, what are you going to do for the second one? And I did come up with Strawberry Shortcake Murder for a second title. And then the third one, he said, oh, you got to do Blueberry Muffin Murder. And I said, okay, but I don't have a really good recipe for blueberry muffins. And I got really kind of stuck on that one because I do now, but I didn't have a really good recipe for blueberry muffins, and I didn't really care for blueberry muffins. And so I tried to think, why don't I like blueberry muffins? I know, because they taste like vanilla cupcakes unless you happen to bite into a blueberry. And so I thought, okay, that's why I don't like them, because I love blueberries, and I like vanilla cupcakes, but I don't want them in the same thing. I want, if it's a blueberry muffin, to taste like blueberries all the way through. That's what I want. So then I had to come up with a recipe that tasted like blueberries all the way through. And it did. It took me, oh gosh, I can't even remember. I think it was like 32 tries before I came up with something like that. And it was interesting. I mean, some of them were really good, but it wasn't quite right. And finally, I hit on the recipe. So that's an unusual recipe. You won't find that one anywhere else, I don't think. But sometimes my editor suggests the title, and other times I do. And this one was mine, Blackberry Pie Murder, because my mom used to make a dynamite blackberry pie when we lived in Minnesota. And we used to go out and pick wild blackberries. They grew by the side of the road sometimes. And we'd go out and pick them and bring them home, and then we'd make pies and all sorts of things out of them. Jam, we used to make jam. Anybody here make jam? Does anybody still do it? Yeah? Good for you. I love to make jam. I think it's fun.
Well, here in Washington State, blackberries are considered a noxious weed because we have so many of them.
Oh my. Well, they do have thorns.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not real pleasant. Yeah. I'm waiting for somebody to come up with, have they ever come up with a thornless blackberry?
I don't think so.
I don't either.
Not growing wild on the roadside anyhow.
No. Do you know anybody that, when they grow blackberries, that puts them on stakes? I had a neighbor that did that. In his backyard, he had these stakes, and they were, that high off the butt, this high off the ground. And then he used to wind the blackberries around it. And they grew right on the stakes and made it a lot easier to pick rather than brambles, you know. And he said, oh no, you can grow any berry that way. I thought that was kind of interesting. Oh, what else can I tell you? Boy, I don't know. Anything else you guys want to know? Yeah?
Your cover artist, Hiro Kimura,
Mm-hmm.
he makes all those
He's
desserts
good.
on the artist. How did you meet him?
Well, actually, I didn't. He was, my publisher gives the assignment for the covers. And Hiro was, I mean, they're beautiful covers. They're just gorgeous. I mean, he is so talented. And I found him online, and I corresponded with him online, you know, because we had never been introduced. And then about 3 years after that, I had to go to New York for something. There was a book expo there. And I got a chance to meet him, which was great because we met for dessert. He is Japanese American. And he, at that point, did not eat American desserts. So he lives in Brooklyn. And when he got an assignment from Kensington, like, you have to do blueberry muffin murder, he would run downstairs to the Brooklyn Bakery, which was just around the corner from his studio. And he'd say, could you make blueberry muffins for me? And they would say, oh, sure. And they'd call him when they were ready, and he would run down there. And he was right. He was telling me how he did it. And he said, they would put one on a plate, and I would look at it, and I'd pick it up, I'd smell it, and he said, and then I'd cut it into it, and I'd look at the inside, and then I just, as soon as I was through observing, then I would take a bite and taste it. And then I would run home and I would draw. And that's what he did with every single one. Now, the blackberry pie is gorgeous on there, isn't it?
It is.
Oh my, what a good job he did with that. All of his covers are just absolutely gorgeous, but this one is one of my very favorites. That and the lemon meringue pie cover, oh my goodness, that was beautiful. So was the lime, key lime pie. Oh. So many delicious, I'm hungry. How about you guys? Oh, gosh. Yes, I will have to get a bite to eat soon. You know, when I started this series, I weighed 98 pounds. Now look at me. Oh, gosh. It's so much work testing recipes, but somebody's got to do it. And my neighbors are so nice because they help me. If I'm baking and it's like summertime or something and I have the window open, my neighbor Gina will call me and she'll say, "What you doing, Joanne?" And I know she can smell something baking. You know, and I go, "Gina, I'm baking." She's like, "What are you baking?" And I'll tell her whatever it is. And she said, "Do you have the coffee pot on?" And I'll say, "Of course I do. Would you like to come over?" "Oh, I'd love to." And knock on the door. She'll be there. And of course, we got to taste whatever came out of the oven. But I do. I'm very popular for a while when I'm testing recipes. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing how my neighbors adore me. And you know, when I'm writing and not testing recipes, well, they kind of leave me alone. I wonder why. Does this happen to you guys when you bake too? Everybody's calling you up, or your people come home, your kids come home from school, or your husband comes home and goes, "Woo, what did you bake?" Somebody once told me when I first got married that if I didn't know how to cook, there were two things I could do when the mother-in-law came over. One of the things I could do is to put a pot of water simmering on the stove and dump in a bunch of vanilla, because it would smell like I was baking something with vanilla in it, and then throw it out quick before the doorbell rang. And the other thing I was told is pot of water again, slice up an onion and put it in. And it's sort of like you're making dinner, you know, because it smells like onions. And I used those for a while when I was learning how to cook. And everybody thought I was a marvelous cook, and then I kind of did learn how. I learned from my mom and my grandmother. They were great cooks. Mom was more a savory cook. She liked the meat dishes. Gammy was the baker. Gammy was the baker that never read a recipe. She didn't measure either. She knew all of her recipes in her head. And we had a flour canister and a sugar canister and all that stuff. And what she would do is she would get out the mixing bowl. We'd say, Gammy, why don't you make, I don't know what, but why don't you make, molasses cookies? She'd go, okay. And she'd get out the flour canister and the molasses and the butter and all that, and she'd scoop out some butter and put it in there, and then she'd, mix in a little molasses, and she'd glug it out. And then she'd reach in for the flour, and she'd go like that with her hand. And I remember saying, how do you know how much flour to put in? And she'd go, well, you stir it, and when you got enough, you stop putting in the flour. So my mom decided we should get all her recipes, and I do have her recipe for molasses cookies. And what we do is say, Gammy, will you make molasses cookies? And then I'd be there with my notebook, and Mom would be there with the measuring cup. And so when Gammy started in and she reached into the flour thing, my mom with this hand would come out with the measuring cup and say, in here. And Gammy would put it in, and Mom would go, Joanne, 1/4 cup, and then dump it in there. So that's how we got our recipes, is we would measure it quick. And she thought it was funny. She thought it was a riot. Thank goodness, And that's what we did. That's how I got all the family recipes. And of course, some of you have been very kind or kind enough to me to send me, email me, and mail me recipes, which is wonderful. So I got some of your family recipes. And if I do use one of your recipes in a book, I always give credit to your first name. It's usually Lisa's cousin Sheila, or somebody's Aunt Sally, or somebody's Uncle Fred. You've got to give credit where credit is due. So I try to do that. So if any of you send me recipes, make sure you put your name on it. Otherwise, I won't know. And does anybody have a really good recipe for double fudge brownies? Because that's the one I'm looking for next. The next book's going to be Double Fudge Brownie Murder.
Nice.
That was my editor's idea.
I'll email John.
Yeah.
Cookies too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything.
Okay.
Any kind of recipe. Sounds good to me. Well, shall we, any more questions, or would you like to sign books and eat cookies? Yes.
On your, where it gives a list of your books, it says suspense novels, Video Kill and Winter Chill. Are those written, or are those ones you're planning to write?
No, they're written. Okay, these were, Kensington decided to republish some of the suspense novels that I did.
Oh.
And they were written a long time ago. I stopped doing suspense because it scared me half to death. I mean, these really are scary. They're like, you know, serial killers, and, you know. I know because my husband used to say, I would, every time I wrote a suspense novel, get nervous about it and kind of, you know, I get into my characters, and, you know, if I had to have a murder in the book, you know, it would bother me, and I'd wake up with nightmares. And he was so good about it. He would flick on the light. He'd go, "What's the matter, honey?" I'd say, "Oh, it's this book I'm writing," and you know, I had to kill off Hazel or somebody, and I just feel so bad about it. And he'd say, "That's okay, you know, I'll leave the light on. I'll go make you a cup of hot chocolate." So he'd go do that, and we'd talk for a while, and I'd go back to sleep. Well, I wrote 10 of those darn things. And with every book, 3-4 times, I would wake up with nightmares. And finally, on the 10th one, I woke up, you know, some deranged killer was chasing me down a blind alley with a machete or whatever. And I wake up going, oh, you know. And he would say, "Flick on the light." And it was no more, "What's the matter, honey?" at that point. Then it was, "Oh, another nightmare?" Go, "Yeah. Honey, why don't you write something else?" So Hannah was born. That's when I started writing the Hannah series. I really, I still wake up with nightmares occasionally, but it's Hannah runs out of chocolate chips, you know. Yeah, those are being republished. I have done a little editing on them to bring them up to date, because when those were written, not everyone had a cell phone, as a matter of fact. I don't think anybody did. And now, I mean, you don't get stuck on the road with your car. You got your cell phone. You can call AAA. Back then, maybe you did get stuck. So I have to kind of cover all the bases with those and update them a bit. But they're interesting, and if you do read them, don't get too scared, but if you do read them, definitely you can see the seeds of Hannah and Lake Eden in there. Sometimes there'll be a cat in there that might remind you of Moisha. Sometimes there'll be a character in there that you're going to go, "Wait a minute, that sounds like Grandma Knudsen." You know, really. I was thinking about Hannah even then, and I didn't even know it. So they're kind of interesting from that standpoint. And they're also really scary. Yeah. Any other questions?
Moisha is such a character.
Yes.
Is he a conglomerate of cats in the past?
Actually, there was a Moisha. There was really a Moisha. Moisha was, I had a female kitty. Big Billy, we called her. She was big. Oh my, 23 pounds, you know, Moisha was, right? And she had a boyfriend. And we named him Moisha. He was an alley cat, and he looked just like Moisha in the book. He had a torn ear, and, you know, looked like he'd been through the wars. And so Moisha was a real cat. I wanted to adopt him. I thought he was a stray. And then I found out he lived around the corner with a lady that fed him braised kidneys every day. So he did not really want to come in and eat dry food with Billy. That was not it. No, he loved his owner, or actually he owned her. I mean, you know cats.
Oh, yes.
And now I have 2 dogs now, and a half a cat. And the half a cat is my neighbor's cat. Okay. I'm not going to tell you which half I have. No, he's Cleo, she. Cleo comes in every morning. When I open the doggy door to let my guys out, Cleo will come in. And I'll be working in my office, and I have a really, really small little office downstairs. And I'll be sitting at my computer, and I'll be typing away, and I will hear 3 sets of snores in the office. There will be Charlie, the medium-sized dog, and Bernie, the little dog, and Cleo, who is curled up with Bernie. She really likes Bernie. and they'll be snoring away, sleeping in my office with me. And then when my neighbor, that is Gina that I was telling you about, when Gina comes home, she's a school secretary, then Cleo will jump the fence and go home. But she spends days at my house a lot. Any other questions? Want to sign some books? Yeah. Okay.